Hello, Internet. This is Josh with Tuxedo Talk. And today I wanted to talk about what everybody is missing when it comes to the latest Cleopatra documentary drama series. In case you're living under a rock and you haven't heard about it, Jada Pinkett Smith was the executive producer of a documentary in which Cleopatra is portrayed as a black African woman. And everyone who knows anything about history got very upset about that, including the nation of Egypt, because Cleopatra was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, who were Greek conquerors who came with Alexander the Great, was one of his generals. After Alexander died, his empire fell apart, and all of his generals carved it up. One of them, the Ptolemaics, took over Egypt, where they ruled for 300 years. They were extremely inbred, in that they would only have children with other Macedonian Greeks, and it was a ruling class over Egypt. And everybody's pointing this out and is very upset about it because there are statues, coins. It's very well historically documented that Cleopatra was Greek and in no way, shape, or form African. And the thing that everybody's missing about this is why this is being done on us and why it matters, is that if you wanted to tell a black story, there were, in fact, black rulers, pharaohs of Egypt. It's really, really hard for most people to understand just how old Egypt is. To give you an idea of it is, when the Romans conquered Egypt around the same time as Cleopatra, the Egyptian civilization was as old to them as the Romans are to us now. So the Roman Empire was about 2,000 years ago. So 2,000 years ago, when the Romans showed up, Egypt had already been around for 2,000 years as a continuous civilization. It's really, really old. So, and I don't know exactly when this was. It's somewhere between 900 and 700 BC. There were African, black, rulers of Egypt, and they came from the land of Cush, that we call now the Nubians. So if you, with just a little bit of research, this could have been known. And if you wanted to have something from the time of Cleopatra, I forget her name, but there actually was a woman queen who fought the Romans. She was a Nubian, to a standstill around the exact same time as Augustus. So this is just not that long after Cleopatra. And she was a warrior queen. So you could have told that story as well. And the question is, why isn't this being done? Why is it that they're wanting to take someone who was Greek and make them black for this particular production? And I think what it is that it really shows still, and you're going to go, what are you talking about initially when I say this? It shows still how white supremacist and Eurocentric modern, quote-unquote, woke Hollywood is. And what I mean by this is that if you go back to like the 1950s in America, in the music industry, there were the top black bands, top black music, and it had its own circuit. But the bigwigs, the producers at the time, didn't want to push it out to the nation as a whole because they thought that white America would never be interested in black music. So that was one of the things where, like, the Temptations were one of the first big breakouts. I didn't know that until not that long ago. So before, the Temptations were seen as just the biggest black band making black music. But the big breakthrough with them is that they just marketed it to the rest of America, and lo and behold, the population as a whole really enjoyed their music, and they were no longer a big black band, they were a big American band. I think you have the exact same mindset right now when it comes to movie production, documentaries, things of that nature, where they sit there and say, well, we want to have more people of color, but nobody's going to give a shit about it unless it's Europeanized. So that's why we have to have black Vikings, black knights in Europe. We got to make Cleopatra black. We've got to make people of color as shown as very strong in important parts of the Roman Empire. And we have to say these things because, well, nobody knows about the Nubians. Nobody knows about the very deep and profound history of Ethiopian Christianity. Nobody knows about the Mali Empire. And nobody's going to give a shit. So if we want to have more people of color in these stories, we just got to shove them into European history. And that's stupid, in my opinion, because I know a lot about the Greek pantheon. I know a lot about Norse mythology. I know quite a bit about Egyptian religion. I don't know really anything about what the Nubian pantheon of gods were, what their religious practices were. And if somebody wanted to make a documentary about that, I would love to watch it. I'd love to learn more about their history, but nobody's doing it. So the big thing that everybody's missing is that while they're criticizing and attacking this latest Cleopatra documentary, they're missing the gold that's sitting out there just waiting for somebody to come pick it up. Like, I would love to see more about POC, people of color, non-European history. So, like, go make it, by all means. Instead of attacking them for portraying Cleopatra as a black warrior queen, instead, like, actually go out and make the real shit. And people would love to watch it. I know I would. So, the best thing that you can do if those types of things that are being made now bother you is just ignore it and make better stuff. So that would be the thing that everyone is missing about the new Cleopatra documentary, and how I would argue that the more woke productions being made now, where they're calling it blackwashing of European history, it's really just last gasps of completely Eurocentric white supremacist thinking in Hollywood. Just the difference is now they feel guilty about it. Whereas before, the Hollywood elites of old, they just looked down on non-whites and like said, like, yeah, they're lower and that's where they belong. Well, nowadays you have a new elite in Hollywood and in the production world, and they view it as well, we want to see more of this, of non-white people, but their stories aren't interesting, so let's just shove them in to the history that we know people care about. So that would be the biggest thing, is that if you want to see the change, I'm telling you right now, please make those new movies and documentaries. I'll be more than happy to watch them.